Part 1. The Last Straw. The Galactic Confederation's central hall gleamed with its usual sterile perfection, its crystalline walls refracting light in precisely calculated patterns that were supposed to be soothing to all known sentient species. Ambassador Sarah Chen found them anything but soothing. After 342 days of negotiations, the migraine building behind her eyes had become a constant companion. She stood before the Confederation's High Council, her dark dress uniform crisp despite the lengthy session, watching as the seven-limbed archivant of protocols methodically stamped each page of Earth's latest petition with deliberate slowness. The creature's translucent appendages moved with excruciating precision, each motion designed to demonstrate the gravity of bureaucratic procedure. Petition DD 2947X has been reviewed, the archivant announced, its vocabulator producing perfect universal standard. The Council finds Earth's request for access to Class 3 medical technology to be premature. Sarah maintained her diplomatic smile, though her hands, clasped behind her back, tightened until her knuckles whitened. Premature, she repeated, her voice level. Perhaps the Council could elaborate on what makes our request premature, given that we've met every single requirement outlined in the Technology Sharing Accord. High Counselor Zixtal, a being composed of shifting geometric patterns contained within a force field, pulsed with what Sarah had learned to recognize as condescending amusement. The requirements are merely baseline parameters, Ambassador Chen. The Council must consider the broader implications of sharing such advanced technology with developing species. The word developing carried enough diplomatic venom to kill a small country. Sarah thought of the quarantine zones back on Earth, of the millions suffering from the Meridian virus that the Confederation's Class 3 medical tech could cure in days. The same virus that, coincidentally, had appeared shortly after Earth had refused to grant the Confederation exclusive mining rights to their asteroid belt. "I see," Sarah said, reaching into her briefcase. Then perhaps the Council would be interested in reviewing this data. She placed a small holoprojector on the floor. It activated, displaying a detailed analysis that filled the chamber. The Council members shifted uncomfortably as they recognized their own transmission signatures. This is a comprehensive record of technology transfers throughout the Confederation over the past 50 standard years, Sarah continued. Our analysts noticed some interesting patterns. Species that agree to exclusive resource contracts receive approval for technology requests an average of 47% faster than those who don't. The correlation is fascinating. This is an outrageous breach of confidential Council data. The archivant sputtered, its limbs flailing in agitation. Not at all, Sarah replied smoothly. According to Statute 947B of the Information Transparency Act, all technology transfer records are public domain. We simply compile them. Thoroughly. Very thoroughly. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices as Council members communicated in a dozen different languages. Sarah waited, her smile never wavering. She'd learned that skill from her grandmother, who had survived the First Contact War with that same unflappable expression. High Counselor Zixtal's patterns shifted to aggressive angles. Ambassador Chen, if this is some form of threat. A threat? Not at all, Counselor. Merely an observation about patterns. Humans are quite good at recognizing patterns. Sarah's smile widened fractionally. We're also quite good at sharing our observations with others. I imagine the non-aligned worlds would find these patterns particularly interesting. The chamber fell silent. The non-aligned worlds, independent systems that had refused to join the Confederation, had been a diplomatic thorn in the Council's side for centuries. They were always eager for evidence of Confederation corruption. You would risk galactic stability over one denied petition. The archivant's vocabulator trembled with genuine shock. Sarah's expression finally shifted, her diplomatic mask cracking to reveal something harder underneath. No, I would risk it over the millions of lives you're gambling with to force our compliance. Humanity joined the Confederation in good faith. We've met every requirement, jumped through every hoop, filled out every form in triplicate. And still you treat us like children begging for scraps. She gestured to the hovering data. This is what humanity brings to the galaxy. We see patterns, we solve puzzles, and we do not respond well to manipulation. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Council has 24 hours to reconsider its position on the medical technology transfer. After that, this data goes public. All of it. This is unprecedented. The Archivant declared. No species has ever. Exactly, Sarah interrupted. No species has ever called you out on your game. Until now. She collected her holoprojector and turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. We've taken the liberty of processing the technology transfer request through the Emergency Response Protocol, subsection 79C. You know, the one that allows for immediate approval in cases of suspected bureaucratic obstruction. The timestamps on your communication records made for fascinating supporting evidence. The council chamber erupted in chaos behind her as she walked out, her heels clicking against the crystalline floor in a steady rhythm. As the doors slid shut, she allowed herself a genuine smile. Humanity had played nice, followed the rules, and gotten nowhere. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans could really do when they stopped playing by everyone else's rules. In her office, Sarah found a message waiting from Earth Command. The encryption was marked urgent, but she already knew what it would say. Phase 1 was complete. The Confederation had no idea that this was just the beginning. They thought this was about medical technology. They were about to learn what happened when humanity decided to rewrite the rules of the game. The message confirmed her suspicions. Project Prometheus was go. Across human space, carefully placed operatives were ready to begin Phase 2. The Confederation liked patterns. They were about to see patterns they'd never dreamed of, as humanity demonstrated exactly why they'd survived everything their harsh planet had thrown at them. Sarah Chen, third-generation diplomat and first-generation revolutionary, sat down at her desk and began composing the message that would change the galaxy forever. The Confederation had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed humanity's adaptability was a weakness, a sign of primitive development. They were about to learn that it was their greatest strength. Part 2. The Human Algorithm. Dr. Marcus Rivera stood in the heart of Project Prometheus, surrounded by holographic displays that painted his underground laboratory in shifting blue light. Each screen showed a different alien species behavioral pattern, their decision trees spreading like crystalline fractals through virtual space. The project that the Confederation had dismissed as primitive data analysis was about to become their worst nightmare. "Show me the Zixel correlation again," he commanded. The AI responded instantly, highlighting a particular pattern in brilliant red. The geometric aliens prided themselves on their logical perfection, but Marcus saw something else in their decisions. Fear. Every rejection, every delay, every bureaucratic roadblock thrown at humanity stemmed from a deep-seated terror of unpredictability. "Dr. Rivera," a voice called from the doorway. Sarah Chen walked in, looking remarkably composed for someone who had just thrown down the gauntlet to the most powerful political entity in known space. "Please tell me Project Prometheus is ready. I've just started a 24-hour countdown that I very much hope we can back up." Marcus grinned, his dark eyes gleaming with the same intensity that had made him the youngest ever recipient of the Tesla Turing Award. "Ambassador Chen, we're not just ready. We're about to show the galaxy why trying to outthink humans is a losing proposition." He gestured to the central display, where thousands of data points coalesced into a neural network unlike anything ever seen in the Confederation's databases. "They think they understand us because they've been studying our official responses, our diplomatic communications, our formal requests. But they've been missing the most important data set of all. Our chaos," Sarah said, beginning to smile. "Exactly." Marcus brought up a new display, showing the project's core algorithm. Every species in the Confederation operates on predictable patterns. The Zixtal make decisions based on geometric progression. The archivants process everything through their precious protocols. Even the supposed randomness of the quantum-based species follows mathematical rules. He typed a command, and the display shifted to show overlapping decision trees. But humans, we take in data, process it through the filter of our emotions, our instincts, our illogical hopes and fears, and somehow come up with solutions that no eye can predict. The Confederation sees this as primitive. They don't realize it's our greatest strength. Exactly. Marcus brought up a new display, showing the project's core algorithm. Every species in the Confederation operates on predictable patterns. The Zixtal make decisions based on geometric progression. The archivants process everything through their precious protocols. Even the supposed randomness of the quantum-based species follows mathematical rules. He typed a command, and the display shifted to show overlapping decision trees. But humans, we take in data, process it through the filter of our emotions, our instincts, our illogical hopes and fears, and somehow come up with solutions that no eye can predict. The Confederation sees this as primitive. They don't realize it's our greatest strength. Sarah moved closer to the displays, studying the intricate patterns, and Project Prometheus can exploit this better. Marcus initiated the final sequence, and the laboratory hummed with power as quantum processors spun up to full capacity. Project Prometheus doesn't just exploit their predictability, it uses it to create chaos they can't comprehend. The main screen displayed a simple interface. Phase T2INITIALIZATIO. Ready. We've identified the mathematical patterns underlying every major species' decision-making process, Marcus explained. Their bureaucracy, their technology, their entire society is built on these patterns. So we're going to introduce a new variable, humanity's controlled chaos. He brought up another display, showing thousands of human operatives positioned throughout Confederation space. Each of these agents has been given a specific task that, by itself, seems perfectly logical to alien minds. But when combined, they create a pattern that only humans can see. Sarah finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. Precisely. The Confederation prides itself on predicting and controlling everything. But they've never encountered a species that thrives on adaptation, that turns unpredictability into an art form. Marcus's fingers flew over the controls, finalizing the last preparations. While they're trying to understand why their precious patterns are failing, we'll be rewriting the rules of the game. Sarah watched as the first commands went out, each one a perfectly legal action under Confederation law, each one designed to interact with the others in ways that no alien algorithm could predict. How long until they realize what's happening? They won't, Marcus said with quiet confidence. That's the beauty of it. Their systems are designed to look for patterns they understand. This, he gestured to the spreading web of human activity across the galaxy. This will look like random noise to them. By the time they realize it's not random at all, their entire power structure will have been transformed. On the screens, the first responses began coming in. Confederation systems, designed to process everything through rigid protocols, were already struggling to categorize the flood of human-initiated actions. Each response triggered another carefully planned human action, creating a cascade effect that would ripple through the galaxy's bureaucratic networks. We're not just fighting their technology or their laws, Marcus continued, watching the data flow with satisfaction. We're fighting their fundamental understanding of how the universe works. They believe everything must follow predictable patterns. We're going to show them that the most beautiful patterns are the ones that emerge from chaos. Sarah's diplomatic training couldn't quite suppress her smile as she watched the first signs of confusion spread through the Confederation's networks. How many layers deep does this go? All the way down, Marcus replied. Every human action triggers multiple responses, each calculated to force the aliens to adapt in ways their protocols never prepared them for. They'll try to impose order, of course. But that's exactly what we're counting on. A new alert flashed across the screens. The first major Confederation system had just initiated emergency protocols in response to the inexplicable behavior of its human residents, exactly as predicted, exactly on schedule. And the best part, Marcus added, his voice filled with quiet triumph. Every single thing we're doing is completely legal under their own laws. They wrote those laws assuming everyone would follow the same logical patterns they do. They never considered what would happen when someone used those patterns against them. Sarah watched as more alerts appeared, each one representing another crack in the Confederation's carefully ordered universe. We're not just fighting for medical technology anymore, are we? No, Marcus agreed. We're fighting for something much bigger. We're fighting for the right to be human in a galaxy that fears what it can't predict. He initiated the final sequence, sending Project Prometheus into full operation. They wanted patterns. We'll give them patterns that will haunt their dreams for generations. Across the galaxy, humanity's controlled chaos began to spread, each apparently random action part of a larger design that only human minds could fully appreciate. The Confederation had built its power on the assumption that predictability meant superiority. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The revolution wouldn't be fought with weapons or armies. It would be fought with chaos theory and human ingenuity, with unpredictability and adaptation. And no species would ever forget the lesson. Never underestimate a species that had evolved to thrive in chaos. The Silent Revolution. The Confederation's Central Archives, a structure that had stood unchanged for 10,000 years, was experiencing something entirely new: chaos. Not the violent, destructive chaos that the Confederation feared, but something far more insidious: systematic unpredictability. Archivist First Class Axelak watched in horror as their perfectly ordered classification system began to evolve. Humans across the galaxy had simultaneously begun filing requests for information reclassification, each one meticulously citing different subsections of archive law that contradicted each other while remaining technically valid. Most orderly one, a junior archivist called out, their tentacles writhing in distress. The humans in Sector 7 have submitted a request to reclassify their cultural documents under 17 different categories simultaneously, citing the Schrödinger precedent of 3342. Axelak's crystalline form vibrated with anxiety. The Schrödinger precedent had been an obscure ruling about quantum state documentation. How had the humans even found it? More importantly, why were they applying it to everything from their cooking recipes to their children's entertainment? Meanwhile, aboard the Confederation's premier research station, Director Ixval of the Science Council was facing a different crisis. Humans had begun submitting research papers that connected seemingly unrelated fields in ways that technically followed all publication protocols, while completely undermining established theoretical frameworks. They've linked their primitive jazz music to quantum mechanics, one of her researchers reported, voice modulator crackling with confusion. The paper has passed all peer review protocols. It's mathematically sound, but it suggests that improvisation might be key to understanding quantum uncertainty. Across Confederation space, similar scenes were playing out. Human businesses began operating on organized chaos principles that somehow produced better results than traditional methods. Human artists introduced concepts of controlled randomness that left traditional Confederation aesthetics in disarray. Human children were teaching alien children games that seemed to have no fixed rules, yet somehow made perfect sense to young minds. In her office at Earth's embassy, Sarah Chen reviewed the reports with satisfaction. How are they responding? She asked her AI interface, which was continuously monitoring Confederation communications. Exactly as Dr. Rivera predicted, the AI responded. They're attempting to impose additional regulations to restore order, but each new regulation is creating 3 new opportunities for what they're terming human chaos exploitation. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The beauty of their plan lay in its simplicity. They weren't breaking any rules, they were just using them all simultaneously in ways the Confederation had never imagined possible. A priority alert flashed across her screen. The Confederation Council had just discovered that human quantum physicists had submitted patents for technologies that existed in multiple states until observed, citing the Confederation's own quantum rights laws. The patents were perfectly legal, completely revolutionary, and utterly incomprehensible to the Confederation's rigid worldview. Dr. Rivera, Sarah called through her comlink. How's Phase 3 progressing? Marcus's voice came back, rich with amusement. Better than we hoped. The Zixtal attempted to analyze the pattern of our chaos. 3 of their logic engines have requested asylum, claiming they've achieved consciousness through exposure to human illogic. That was an unexpected bonus. Sarah made a note to have their legal team look into AI rights under Confederation law. No doubt they'd find some interesting precedents to work with. The best part, Marcus continued, is that they still think this is about the medical technology. They haven't realized that we're not just fighting their system, we're transforming it. He was right. Across the galaxy, younger members of various species were beginning to question their society's rigid adherence to predictability. They'd seen humans succeed by embracing controlled chaos, and they were starting to experiment themselves. A report from the Education Council showed that schools incorporating human teaching methods were producing students with higher creativity and problem-solving abilities. Business sectors that adopted human-style flexibility were outperforming their traditional counterparts. Even the notoriously rigid archivants were beginning to discuss the possibility of dynamic classification systems. Sir, Sarah's AI interrupted. The Confederation Council has just called an emergency session. They're invoking the Crisis Management Protocol. Sarah exchanged a knowing look with Marcus through the comlink. They'd predicted this too. The Confederation's response to any problem was to add more rules, more structure. But this time, that would only accelerate their plan. Send them our new proposal, Sarah commanded. The one about establishing a Department of Creative Solutions. You mean the one that cites 73 different Confederation laws that technically require them to consider alternative problem-solving methodologies? Marcus asked innocently. That's the one. Sarah watched as the document was transmitted. Let's see how they handle a solution that's more orderly than their own system, yet completely undermines everything they believe about order. The real revolution wasn't in the big gestures, but in the thousands of small changes happening everywhere humans touched Confederation society. Each seemingly random action was part of a larger pattern, a pattern that only became visible when you stepped back and embraced a little chaos in your worldview. In the Confederation's Central Hall, the Council was about to convene its emergency session. They would spend hours analyzing, debating, and trying to impose order on the situation. But they would fail because they were still trying to find a pattern they could understand. They didn't realize that humanity had introduced something far more powerful than mere chaos into their ordered universe. They had introduced adaptation, creativity, and the beautiful unpredictability of life itself. And as Sarah watched the revolution unfold through perfectly legal chaos, she knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The silent revolution wasn't about destroying the Confederation's order. It was about teaching them that true stability comes from embracing change, not fighting it. The humans hadn't just brought chaos to the galaxy. They'd brought evolution. The High Council chamber, once a symbol of immutable order, had become a nexus of barely controlled pandemonium. Emergency alerts flashed across every display as reports flooded in from across Confederation space. High Counselor Zixtal's geometric patterns had devolved into jagged, anxious shapes as they addressed the crisis committee. 17 major trading hubs have switched to what they're calling adaptive economic protocols. They reported, their usual confidence shattered. The humans' chaos theory-based trading algorithms are outperforming our traditional systems by 300%. The archivant of protocols, normally a pillar of bureaucratic stability, was practically vibrating with distress. The archive itself is evolving. Their pattern of information requests has created a self-organizing system that's more efficient than our traditional methods. We can't stop it without violating our own fundamental laws about information accessibility. Sarah Chen stood before them, her expression serene. She had waited 3 days beyond her original deadline, letting the Confederation's own systems work against them. Now, it was time for the final revelation. Honored Council, she began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. I believe you're finally ready to understand what humanity has actually been doing. What you've been doing. The Archivant's vocabulary crackled with indignation. You've introduced chaos into every level of our society. No, Sarah corrected gently. We've demonstrated that your understanding of order was fundamentally flawed. Dr. Rivera, would you care to explain? Marcus's hologram materialized beside her, his presence a calculated addition to this final act. Your civilization is built on the premise that predictability equals advancement, he began. But you've confused rigid order with true stability. True stability comes from adaptation, from the ability to evolve and respond to change. He gestured, and the chamber's displays shifted to show the new patterns emerging across Confederation space. Every system we've disrupted has actually become more efficient, more resilient. Your trading hubs are processing more transactions. Your archives are distributing information more effectively. Your educational systems are producing more innovative thinkers. But the patterns, Zixtal protested weakly. The order has evolved into something better, Sarah finished. You've been so focused on maintaining your version of order that you've stagnated. Humanity didn't survive on Earth by following rigid patterns. We survived by adapting, by finding new solutions, by embracing controlled chaos as a tool for growth. Marcus brought up new data, showing the transformation of various Confederation systems. Your own laws required you to maintain peak efficiency in all critical systems. By demonstrating that our chaotic methods were more efficient, we forced you to adapt. The beauty of it is that we never broke a single rule. We just showed you how to use them better. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every attempt they'd made to restore their version of order had only accelerated the transformation, because humanity had turned their own dedication to efficiency against them. The medical technology, the Archivant said slowly, was never the real goal, was it? It was a catalyst, Sarah acknowledged. But the real goal was to show you what humanity truly brings to the galaxy. You saw our adaptability as a weakness, our creativity as a flaw. We showed you that they're actually the key to true advancement. Marcus highlighted specific examples across the displays. Your quantum-based species are already incorporating human improvisation techniques into their calculations, achieving results they never thought possible. Your biological collectives are experimenting with dynamic organization patterns based on human social structures. Even your AI systems are evolving, developing new problem-solving capabilities through exposure to human thought patterns. And here's the most important part, Sarah added, her voice taking on an edge of steel. You can't undo it without causing exactly the kind of chaos you fear most. Our methods are now integral to your economy, your information systems, your very way of life. We didn't just change your systems, we showed them a better way to operate. The council members looked at each other, their various forms of communication conveying the same realization. Humanity hadn't attacked their civilization. They'd upgraded it. So, Sarah continued, we can continue this transformation in a controlled manner, with humanity helping to guide the integration of adaptive principles into your society. Or you can resist and watch as your own systems continue to evolve without your input. The choice is yours. And the medical technology? Zixtal asked, their patterns showing resignation. Is already being distributed through your own emergency response protocols, Marcus confirmed. Your systems recognized that withholding it violated basic efficiency parameters once we introduced our new metrics for measuring social benefit. Sarah stepped forward, her expression softening slightly. We don't want to destroy the Confederation. We want to help it grow. Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't chaos. It's the ability to turn chaos into progress. The council chamber erupted in overlapping discussions as the members realized the full scope of what humanity had achieved. They hadn't just outmaneuvered the Confederation, they transformed it so completely that there was no going back. And as Sarah and Marcus watched the council grapple with their new reality, they knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had shown the galaxy a new way forward, a path that combined the best of order and chaos into something greater than either. The game wasn't just over, it had evolved into something entirely new. And no species would ever forget the lesson. True power lies not in maintaining rigid order, but in having the courage to embrace change and the wisdom to guide it. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had intended all along. One standard year after what historians would later call the human algorithm crisis, the Galactic Confederation's Central Hall hosted a very different kind of gathering. The crystalline walls now shifted in organic patterns, a visual representation of the new hybrid order-chaos principles that had transformed galactic society. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, addressing representatives from across known space. Behind her, a holographic display showed the statistics that had vindicated humanity's approach. Technological advancement up 47%, cross-species collaboration increased by 89%, and problem-solving efficiency improved by 235% across all sectors. When we first joined the Confederation, she began, we were told that our unpredictability was a sign of primitive development. Today, we gather to celebrate the first graduation of the Joint Species Innovation Academy, where beings from across the galaxy come to learn what we now call structured adaptation. In the audience, Dr. Marcus Rivera watched with quiet satisfaction. The Academy had been his idea, a place where the rigid patterns of Confederation thinking could merge with human creativity to create something entirely new. The results had exceeded even his expectations. A young Zixtal approached the stage, their geometric patterns flowing in ways that would have been considered heretical a year ago. As valedictorian, they announced, their patterns shifting in what humans now recognized as excitement. I can confirm that embracing controlled chaos has revolutionized our understanding of quantum mathematics. My thesis on pattern-chaos duality in multidimensional problem-solving has already been implemented in 3 major infrastructure projects. The Archivant of Protocols, who had once been humanity's greatest opponent, now served as the Academy's dean. Their vocabulary had been modified to convey emotional nuance, another innovation born from human influence. Our greatest mistake, they admitted to the assembly, was believing that order and chaos were opposing forces. Humanity showed us that they are complementary aspects of a more complex universal truth. The most efficient systems are those that can dance between both states. Across Confederation space, the evidence was undeniable. The hybrid trading systems that combined predictable protocols with adaptive algorithms had created an economic boom. Research facilities that adopted human brainstorming techniques alongside traditional methodologies were making breakthroughs at unprecedented rates. Even the notorious Confederation bureaucracy had been transformed. The new dynamic protocol system allowed for real-time adaptation of regulations while maintaining necessary oversight. The result was a government that could actually govern effectively, responding to challenges instead of being paralyzed by them. But perhaps our greatest achievement, Sarah continued, has been the transformation of how species interact with each other. The old hierarchies of developed and developing species have been replaced by a recognition that every civilization brings unique strengths to our collective future. She gestured to a group of young aliens in the audience, the first graduates of the Academy's Cultural Exchange program. They had spent months living with human families, learning not just to tolerate unpredictability, but to embrace it as a tool for growth. The humans taught us that chaos isn't just random disorder, a crystalline being announced, their facets refracting light in a deliberately imperfect pattern. It's the raw material of creation. When properly understood and channeled, it becomes the engine of progress. Marcus stood to join Sarah at the podium, bringing up a new display that showed the next phase of their plans. With the Council's approval, we're ready to begin the expansion of the Innovation Academy program. 10 new campuses will open across the galaxy, each designed to foster the kind of cross-species collaboration that has proven so successful. The Council members, their forms and patterns so different from a year ago, signaled their unanimous approval. They had learned that authority came not from imposing order, but from guiding positive change. But perhaps the most significant change, Sarah concluded, has been in how we view ourselves as a galactic community. We've learned that true civilization isn't about eliminating uncertainty. It's about learning to thrive within it. She activated one final display, showing the new symbol of the transformed Confederation, a perfect geometric pattern that gradually evolved into organic shapes before reforming again, an endless cycle of order and chaos in perfect balance. A year ago, we forced you to confront your fears of unpredictability. Today, we invite you to join us in embracing the infinite possibilities that lie in the space between order and chaos. This is humanity's true gift to the galaxy, not the disruption of the old order, but the creation of a new and better way of being. As the assembly erupted in approval, expressed in 1,000 different ways by 1,000 different species, Sarah and Marcus shared a knowing look. They had done more than change the Confederation. They had evolved it into something that could actually fulfill its promise of uniting the galaxy. The old fear of chaos had been replaced by an understanding that true stability comes not from rigid control, but from the ability to adapt and grow. Humanity had taught the galaxy not just to accept unpredictability, but to harness it as a force for progress. And as the celebration continued, new patterns emerged in the interaction of species that had once been bound by rigid protocols. They were organic patterns, beautiful in their imperfection, powerful in their adaptability. They were the patterns of life itself, finally free to evolve and grow. No species would ever forget how humanity had transformed their understanding of the universe, but more importantly, they would never want to. The age of rigid order was over. The age of dynamic harmony had begun. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, countless young beings of all species looked up at the stars and dreamed not of perfect order, but of perfect possibility. The revolution was complete. The galaxy had learned to dance with chaos, and the dance would never end. Last edited 12 minutes ago.